Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Stand Up Speakeasy. My name is Sareth, and every single episode of this is comics I would have loved to interview if I would have gone on tour of the Central Time Zone. If it wasn't for COVID, I would have gotten on tour and interview these fine comics. And it's a secret society of comics for now, and then we're going to release the episodes in January. But this is the live portion of the show where we invite their family, friends, fans, and foes to participate if they want to, and encourage them to be nice to both of us. Um, but with those interviews that I've done, I was hoping to do 10 to 20 minutes, but I'm glad that this worked out this way because I found the silver lining. We're possibly going to talk for more than 10 to 20 minutes, possibly. So with that being said, I'm bringing on a comic from Louisiana. Ladies and gentlemen, Morgan Wright. Hey, Morgan, how are you, pal?
Hey, how's it going? How you doing?
I'm doing quite well. Thanks for joining me on the show this fine evening.
Oh, for sure. I'm so glad to be here.
Awesome. I'm honored, sir. And so you're a Louisiana native, and you've been doing performing stand up comedy for about 5 years. And what were those early years like, and those 5 years like so far?
Baton Rouge has a really unique play on comedy. The way that they do things. It is a sports town. LSU is our football team, so that is 90% of all bars and any type of venues are like very sports and music centric. That's one thing we struggle with in Louisiana as comics is just competing against the music and sports scene, especially during like the fall, wintertime. Football season is the worst. But it was a really unique scene. I started out, I turned 30 years old. And I was like, I'm not happy with anything that I'm doing in life. I was working at a head shop where I sold pipes and bongs to people called the Raw Shop, it's like the oldest head shop in Louisiana. And I was the general manager there. And at the store, there were two stores in Baton Rouge. There are two stores in Baton Rouge. And at our sister store, my roommate worked there. His name was Jonathan. And he worked with a comic named Chase Myers. Very, very, very funny guy. He would come over to the house. He would give my roommate a ride home. We would all socialize. And over the first year working there, we all became friends. And I would just constantly hit Chase up for I'd be like, oh, you're a comic. Well, tell me about this, and this. What's this like? How is it like? Well, what do you do when the heck, and he eventually one day he goes, hey man, how about you just do a show, just come do the open mic and quit asking me questions. So I was like, okay, well, I don't he goes, well, you tell all these crazy stories, just do that. And so the first night that I went to the station is a really unique place. It's a train that they converted into a bar. And then to the right of the building, right when you walk into it, they have a comedy room. It has a stage, has a bunch of chairs and everything out there. It's a really great space for that. And Robert Rowell is his name. He's a comic from Louisiana. He also runs the improv comedy group here in Baton Rouge, also at the Manship Theater. They do a lot of spoofs for movie nights and stuff like that. But he was running the show. He was one of the guys that had been doing it for a long time. And I saw people go up and bomb. First three people I saw bomb so hard. And Robert was a pretty ruthless host back in the day. If you went on stage and you bombed, not in a sense to where if you bombed and you tried hard, he'd give you you were trying. But if you were just generally a bad open micer, he would go and roast you. And his roast level was so powerful that it shook me, and I got too scared and I didn't go up. I was like, I'm not ready. So I went home that night, and every day until then, I just wrote my jokes out over and over and over and over and over again. I would send them constantly to my friend Chase. Hey, do you think this is funny? Do you think this is good? And I finally go on stage. I did 3 minutes. I did really well for 3 minutes. I told one good story, got some laughs, didn't bomb, and I just was like, all right, I'm good. And I just got off stage. Because the one thing I was worried the most about was going over my time. Now in Baton Rouge, we normally get 5 minutes, but they tell you, hey, look, if you feel like you can't fill the 5 minutes, just do your time and go. So that's what I did. I was like, oh, I got a great laugh. I'm leaving while I'm ahead. but getting that laugh was like, it just, like, I was so charged. I was like walking around. I was like, I did it, guys. Yes, yes. And I knew that I was going to be a stand-up comic after that.
Awesome. And in 1985, that's when you were born in Jackson,
Oh yeah.
Louisiana,
Oh
and
yeah.
the third of four children. And what was that like about your
Okay.
upbringing like?
Well, it was really, so me and my youngest sister were pretty much like raised next to each other growing up. We have the same mom. Our dad's been married a few times, and my two older brothers are from like his first marriage. And we like had a really, my brothers were always hyper successful, very like, just, these guys, we knew they were going places and doing things. And I was always called a smart kid, but I think I was more called a smart ass kid because I'm also on the same side. On my mom's side of the family, my mom is one of 8 children, and they all have kids. So like, I was one of 22 grandchildren, and I was uniquely like right in the middle. All of the people that were younger than me were like 4 years younger than me. All the people that were older than me were, close to 4 years older than me. So like, I was like just the kid in the middle for a long time. And so I would hang around a bunch of adults and I'd hear them talk shit all day and just constantly, just like, roast each other. They would play spades at a big table. We'd have these huge family cook-offs, and they would just, talk shit to each other constantly, throwing the F word around like it was like, like it was an everyday thing. And so I grew up around a lot of people, and I got a very unique perspective of all this because on my mom's side of the family, they're all a bunch of unique characters of criminals and and it made for a very unique experience because we would all get home and my grandmother would be there, who was the matriarch of the family. And she would keep everybody like, tight knit and close. And then once she passed away years later, it just kind of all exploded. So I take a lot of these stories I've heard my whole life and I throw those on stage, and, maybe I might embellish a little fact here or there, but I just try to create a unique look at what it was like to be in this crazy Cajun, Irish Catholic, just melting pot of just whack jobs.
Indeed, most definitely. And you and I both are the same in this category in your bio, and we're always wanting to have the last word, whether when we're making jokes and whether it gets us in trouble or not. And
oh yes, my mouth has gotten me in trouble more often than it saved me.
indeed, most definitely, I feel you on that one for sure. And so we started comedy one of the oldest shows in Louisiana called Elite Comedy at the station Bar and Grill in Baton Rouge. What were those early years like, and or early days, and what is it like now before COVID?
It was real cliquey at first. They had different groups of comics that really sat with each other and stayed in the different areas and stuff like that. And the older guys were there, and there were only 3 comics that made it from the class of 2015. Well, 4 comics. It was myself. It was Tim Smith. He moved to Chicago and he does a lot of comedy out there. Then there was Omar Finley and Terrence Delane, who are 2 close personal friends of mine. They actually have their own comedy show that they produce that I've been on a ton of. It's called No Show Comedy, and you can you can just No Show Comedy online, .com, and you can see all their wonderful shows. I'm featured on there quite often. We've done comedy albums through their Louisiana comedy album. But we stuck together, like us 3, and just kind of just became friends. Now, the thing about me is because I'm so older than a lot of the other guys, I fit in really quickly with all the comics that have been around for a while because they were all, mid 30s. I'm 30 years old. So I just kind of hit it off with everybody, with all those guys. And I just sat and I would just listen and just watch them and just take advice where I could. And that allowed me to just move up a lot quicker than a lot of other people.
Indeed, most definitely. And I know what it feels like to be like in scenes that have cliques, and I was like that when I was back home in Colorado, and I'm like, I'm just gonna be the lonely bird here, and just, like be friends with everyone, and there's some cliques here in Florida too, but it's not as bad. So, but you also produce the comedy. I'll see if I can pronounce this right. It's Tufe.
Okay, so um, another comic here from Baton Rouge, but he's moved to LA now. His name was Michael Al Baghdadi. He created a show called Comedy Etouffee, which is, like crawfish etouffee. It was just a little, Louisiana touch to it. And it's basically a showcase that we had here in Baton Rouge where we would try to have people from out of town or in town and just highlight these guys that have been working hard. And we'd have these, at a really nice venue. And we would just have just a really fun show and just try to get some comics, some money, and a little bit of some featurette time. We haven't been doing shows for a while now because of COVID. It was a really unique show. Myself and another comic, Reese Dontan, we took the show over, and then Reese, he also moved. So now, it's just me spearheading the show here in Louisiana now.
Indeed. You performed all over Louisiana and also clubs from Louisiana to Chicago. And what's it like traveling and doing all those shows all over the place? And you mentioned Texas too earlier.
Yeah, I've done shows Texas, Kansas City, St. Louis, Missouri, Chicago, just kind of like that upward stretching down. Yeah, I mean, it was fun. Kansas is a terrible place. They have too many rules about when you can and cannot drink alcohol, and I did not like that at all. We so happened to go up there during Easter, and it was like we had to go do a show at a restaurant where we couldn't drink any alcohol, and then we were like, it's Easter. They were like, oh yeah, you can't find alcohol at any bars. We can't buy it at all. Period. And I was so blown away that I was just like, I can't believe this. I'm from Louisiana where we have drive-through liquor stores. You don't have to get out your car. Like we were like, ices are great. These are fantastic. What would make it better? Let's pour alcohol in it. And we have daiquiri shops everywhere. Like that's one of the craziest things about Louisiana is that they're just like, hey, don't drink. But it's more like, hey, don't get caught. Like, yeah, it's exactly what it's like. I mean, the city of New Orleans, you just have open container. You just walk around with an alcoholic beverage in your hand like it is a Coke and just be like, yes, yeah, 90 proof. It's crazy.
It reminds me of Savannah, Georgia. They have those open container, laws there. It's pretty wild. And
Yeah,
so,
Chicago was great. Chicago was fun. We had a lot of fun in Chicago. All the clubs are awesome. All the comics there were really nice. They loved just hearing us talk with our thick Louisiana accents and just coming and never be like that was my first time in a big city like that where it was like skyscrapers everywhere. You're just like, oh, what is this? Like I'm used to like I thought like big city. I'm thinking Baton Rouge and stuff like that, but no, that ain't nothing like that. It's not. I mean, Austin too. Austin's a huge city too.
wow, that's pretty neat. And we have some viewers in the audience. So if you'd like to jump in on the live chat and interact with us, you're more than welcome to, but be nice to us. Indeed. And so Morgan, you have a unique kind of humor, and that's what I like about comics with unique sense of humors and all that good stuff. And then you're great about your wild family. And is that where your comedy stems from the most, or?
Yeah, so my family in general, like my first special that I ever do, like whether it's a year from now, 5 years from now, whatever it is, like whenever I can get that first hour-long special, I'm going to do it explicitly about my family. These are people that I think the world should know about, like my grandmother, my mom. Like I find out all these crazy stories about my family members. Like I found out that my mom, so my grandmother, she used to own this bar in Baker, Louisiana, called the Red Garter. She was she was a fighter. She was a crazy woman. She was short skirt, long jacket, go-go boot style, like take no shit from nobody. And then she had 8 kids. She was just a wild woman. And so my mom, which is the 8th child of her 8 kids, is a wild woman also. She used to, like when she was like 13, she used to steal cars and go across the river to the place called Port Allen from Baton Rouge, where bars didn't have they were open all night. And so it was all mob owned. The mob used to own all this. It was a guy, his name was Jimmy Savella, and he worked for Carlos Marcello, which was involved in the JFK assassination. And
Wow.
my mom would go and party with these mob guys, and they would just like, she'd play cards with them, and my grandmother would come looking for her and would show up and threaten mob bosses to, like, she's like, I'll kill you if you don't tell me where my daughter is. I'll burn this whole motherfucker down, and just wild stuff like this. And I'm hearing these stories, and my mom's just talking about it like it's just matter of fact, like this is what happened. And I'm like, do you understand how much this could be in an HBO drama? Like, this would be amazing. And so what I want to do is I want to create I want to show these people what type of characters my family is, and then maybe one day get a TV show made off of it.
Indeed, most definitely. And you chose to donate to pinkfund.org, and for the viewers to donate to. And why did you pick that fine organization?
Okay, so the pinkfund.org is a great organization that basically helps women that are suffering currently from breast cancer. If they need help with their treatments, what this money does is it provides them with funds so that they can continue getting treatment. And the reason this is important to me is because my grandmother, who's one of my main jokes, she passed away from breast cancer many years ago. She fought it for 4 years, and then she finally passed away. And my mom is also a breast cancer survivor. She's had breast cancer multiple times, and she's still alive, still, fighting the good fight. Also, one of my aunts, my mom's older sister, she also is a breast cancer survivor. So I've been around this my whole life, and I've seen what it can do to a family and things like that. So I would just like people to donate to that to help those women that are in need, because right now, especially in 2020, we got to help them as much as they can.
Absolutely. And I send my condolences. I was my maternal grandmother is was one of my heroes, and so I've only got to meet her like 3 times, but like every time I went to Cambodia and she threw parties for me, yeah, and
That's so
parades.
awesome.
Yeah, she was the best indeed. And Morgan, if I was to go on tour, I was planning on interviewing you these questions, and these next
Okay.
series of questions are up next. So, we talked earlier about your first time doing stand up. So let's go back for the viewers at home that are watching at the moment. And what was the feeling? What inspired you to perform stand up comedy?
Honestly, I think it was the freedom of just being yourself and not for fear of judgment from others. Comedians have this unique perspective. We are going on stage, we're showing people our reality, and then they are appreciating us for it. They're paying to see this. That concept always stuck with me. And my whole life, I've always sat back and watched other people and tried to, and I always try to think about things from their perspective. Even if I'm in an altercation, we all get mad, and I sometimes can't think straight and just go crazy. And we all get that mad, but I always try to be retrospective about the interactions that I have with people and just try to understand things from their perspective. And I think comedy has a unique platform to do that, because when people are listening to us tell jokes, they're not laughing because they're looking at things. They're like, oh, this guy, like, he's funny. No, when I tell a story, I'm telling a story just so much into the story that people are looking at it from my perspective. They're just like, oh my God, if I was Morgan and having to deal with it, this is hilarious. And so I just, I try to just do that in day-to-day life and it helps me with my writing and things like that.
Most definitely. And what was the feeling like when you first performed stand up?
Oh God, it was terrifying. As a matter of fact, when I first started doing comedy, I would pace back and forth on the stage because if I stood still, my knees would shake. And I used to hold the microphone in 2 hands and it would just be gripping it as hard as I can because I was so scared. I was terrified. I used to have such a fear of public speaking. And now I could literally go on stage in my underwear.
Indeed. And what are your favorite comedy specials and comedy record albums?
Oh wow. I see now. I don't listen to a lot of new comedy. I have more. Let's see. I've been listening to it a lot more lately because I'm getting over the stigma to be afraid of stealing jokes, whether or not it's actually doing it or just hearing something and not realizing it, and then you go, because I never want to be one of those guys that get called out on stage while you're doing stand up saying this is someone else's joke. that would it would destroy me. I would literally just explode into a ball of flames. But I what was the original question? I get off track real easily. Sorry.
Oh, your favorite comedy specials and comedy record
Okay.
album.
So George Carlin was really big in our household. Richard Pryor, Sam Kinison. I I mean, I think Dave Chappelle's Killing Them Softly is one of my favorite, comedy shows, period. Now, when I was a kid, I didn't get to choose the comedy that I was listening to. So, like my dad, he had a real country-esque sense. So he was real blue collar comedy. So he listened to a lot of, Ron White and a lot of the blue collar comedy tour. I grew up listening to that. Jeff Foxworthy, you might be a redneck, just stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, Dave Chappelle, my biggest influences would probably be Dave Chappelle and George Carlin. Those are the guys that I like, that I listen to. I pretty much hinge on their word. I listen to it and I'm just like this. Oh yeah, he knows what he's talking about. I like real big storytellers, Ron, like I said, Ron White's a really funny guy. I think Joey Diaz is one of the funniest people on the entire planet too. I like heady comedy sometimes, so people like, what's his name? Duncan Trussell, some of the guys that hang out with Joe Rogan. I used to be a big Rogan head. Now I like him for his interviewing abilities, but his comedy, is, I need to smoke a lot of weed before I go listen to a Joe Rogan comedy set to really appreciate it.
Indeed. And a lot of those folks have been on TV and film. And now I want to know what your favorite sitcom, sketch shows, and comedy films are.
Oh, wow. Okay. So In Living Color is my favorite sketch show of all time.
Awesome.
Hands down. I grew up with early SNL, and I do admire and love the late 90s, Will Ferrell, Tina Fey, all that SNL. But In Living Color was the show that I watched because people around my family, it was my rebellious show. I would watch In Living Color and be like, why are you watching that? And I'd be like, because this is hilarious. Jim Carrey, back when he was James Carrey. See, originally, I didn't even want to do stand-up. I never thought of stand-up as a way for me to do any type of comedy. I wanted to be on TV. I wanted to be in a sketch show. I wanted to do, Chris Farley was my hero. I wanted to be like Chris Farley. I wanted to do movies like him. I still think that some of his skits are some of the funniest I've ever seen in my entire life. My favorite Chris Farley skit, period, is the decaffeinated coffee crystals, where he's just sitting at the table and he's like, "Sir, did you know that this coffee is actually decaffeinated?" And he's like, "What?" And he has that freak out. Oh, I could watch it 1,000 times. It's my favorite skit of all time. Now, TV shows, I love sitcoms. I was raised on TV sitcoms. So, I like Growing Pains, Step by Step, Family Matters, anything TGIF. I love that stuff because it's cheesy, wholesome goodness. It's like a warm blanket you pulled out the dryer. You just go lay down and you just watch it and you're in a safe place. That's what I like about that. My favorite TV show of all time is Parks and Recreations. I love it. It gets me. That show gets me.
Indeed. And comedy films?
Like I said, most of the Chris Farley films are really important to me. I like early, of course, because of my age group, like early Adam Sandler movies, Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore, things like that. I love comedy more than anything, like the comedy, like TV show, movie. So I'll watch it all. If I get a good laugh out of it, I'm going to watch it. Super Troopers, that's a classic. That's a movie that still gets laughs from me. Airplane, that's probably my favorite one. I still think that that's like the funniest movie ever made.
Indeed, most definitely. And if you can go on tour with any comedian, locally and internationally known, which comedians would you like to go on tour with?
Okay. Locally, I have honestly, the people that I started going up into comedy with, I would love to go on a comedy show with, like, Mike Honore, Chase Myers, Josh Watts, Omar Finley, Terrence Delane, like the guys that I've known my whole life, like in comedy. I would love to do a show with these guys because we've bonded so well. So I know, like, Will Merrill, it's another funny guy. Like these guys would be awesome to go on tour with. Famous people that I could go on tour with. I would love to go on tour with, I mean, honestly, like, it would be fun to, like, warm up a crowd for someone like Kevin Smith, because he's just a big talk guy and I could get into some good conversations with him. Let's see, Tom Papa, Joey Diaz, Tom Segura. I would love to go with those, just, because they all have talk centric styles and podcasts, and I feel like I could learn a lot from them. Honestly, someone who's dead, if I could go, Mitch Hedberg. I wish I could go with Mitch Hedberg on tour because I could learn so much about his shorthand style.
Indeed, most definitely. There are more viewers in the audience, so if you'd like to jump into the comment section and chat with us, you're more than welcome to, but promise to be nice to us. That'd be awesome.
Yes.
And let's see here. If you can get roasted by 5 comedians, top 5 dead or alive, which ones would you like to get roasted by?
Oh God. That's a tough question because I'm terrified of roasts. Like, every time that I've been invited to roast battles, and like, it terrifies me because I just don't know how to be mean without being, like, horribly, like, terrible as a person. Like, I don't know what I would say. I think it would be fun to, like, get roasted by, like, the old school roast comedy guys, like the Dean Martin roast and stuff like that. I used to watch on Nick at Night. That'd be pretty wild. But I think some, like, killers, man, if, like, Chris Tucker, or like, I mean, even something like Joey Diaz, I bet you he could roast the hell out of me. Whitney Cummings, like, she would be really funny. I think she would do really good. I mean, I don't know. The roast is a tough one because I wouldn't want to get roasted because I don't know if I could take it.
Indeed, for sure. And where do you see your comedy career in the next 5 years?
Well, hopefully in the next 5 years, I'll either be, like, touring more or out of the state of Louisiana, just trying a new place out. I kind of want to go north and, like, just get away from the South, because I feel like I've learned everything I can from the South, like, about being a Southern comic, and I want to kind of experience what it's like to be in another place with another mentality. I'd love to do a show in Canada, like, go do, like, a Canadian tour would be awesome.
Heck yeah. And which other forms of comedy would you like to venture off into, like improv, sketch, comedy writing, acting, directing, etc.?
I'd like to get into acting, sketch writing, and comedy writing, maybe directing one day, but I would really like to be behind the camera. I just feel like I have a very pretty face.
Most definitely. And what is your favorite joke a comic has ever written?
Oh, wow. Let's see. I really love George Carlin's, like, words you can't say bit. I think that's really, like, a really great one. But there's a former local comic that lives in Houston, and his name is John Lombard. And he has my favorite joke of all time, which is basically where he talks about how he loves thick women so much because a thick woman will eat all the food on her plate. You take her to Popeyes, she's going to eat her biscuits. And he would say stuff like that. And we'd all start laughing, just getting riled up. And then he would say, I want a woman who's Topanga thick, like Topanga from Boy Meets World. And when that is my favorite joke, I wish I offered him $1,200 for that joke, and he wouldn't give it to me. Cause when he moved to Houston, had a kid, and he's, being a dad more than, doing stand up. So I was like, dude, I'll give you $1,200 for this joke. And he wouldn't give it to me. So I love that joke so much. Topanga thick. It's classic.
Indeed. That show is classic too.
It is. That's another sitcom I love. Like Boy Meets World, I watch it. Like, Saved by the Bell, all that stuff. I love all that cheesy drama.
Same here. And then they play that music on that cheesy drama. that
Hmm.
instrumental. I'm like, all right, this is a serious part of the show. um, and let's see here. What experience would you like your audience to take with them after a set is over?
Wait, hold on. You broke up for a second. What
Oh,
was that question?
what experience would you like your audience to take with them after a set is over?
Um, Really, if I could take one thing, if people could take one thing from my jokes, especially the ones about my family, is that to understand that we all have like terrible family members, and that sometimes, just understanding that adults, that's the biggest thing. One thing, like, I understand as like I'm a child of divorce, things like that. When you're young, you deify your parents and the people that are above you, that are older than you, because they're your adults. You're supposed to respect and honor them. So you give them this like platform that they're on. And then the older you get, the lower that platform gets, and to the point to where you start to feel like you're above the people that are around you, until you start making human mistakes. And so a lot of my comedy is just to try to show that people, no matter how we all try to do well, there are some bad things that happen, and people tend to make bad choices, but we're all making bad choices together on this terrible planet. So I just try to get people to understand things from another perspective, like, hey, you don't really understand the whole story, why, but this person was actually really cool despite some of the shitty things that they did.
Most definitely, indeed, and when as Robert nominated you, which is Robert Hall, and he's such a fine fella, a great gentleman. I want to have you do the same thing to nominate my future guest for the show, the Stand Up Speakeasy. So, with that being said, I know open micer is a derogatory term, but I am always going to be forever open micer because, well, it's my dojo. And
Yeah.
which
Offer. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'll go for which open micer would you like to nominate to be a guest on this future show?
Let's see which one. Hmm. Actually, you know what? I'm going to nominate my co-host, or my former co-host, for Delete Open Mic Comedy, because before COVID, I was one of the hosts over there, and since, like, with COVID and everything, I live further away than I used to, so I handed the show over to my friend. So I'm going to go ahead and nominate my close friend Vaughn Vayon, a Lafayette-based comic that's now here in Baton Rouge. A really funny guy.
Awesome. And your favorite feature act out of Lafayette or Baton Rouge?
My favorite feature. Let's see. What does that mean? My favorite person that's featured for me, or like, my favorite person that's done like a 15-minute set?
Your favorite person that's for either both, if you
Okay,
want.
so my favorite person that's featured for me is my friend Blaine Baker. I like him because he tries really hard. He's constantly writing jokes, and he used to be like a real big shock, like, I'm going to say shocking things to throw the crowd off tile comic. But since, like, over the last couple of years, he's really come into his own and started to discover his own voice, and I think he's really great. And then the my other feature I'm going to nominate is my good friend Ken Edwards, who I went on tour with, and I'm going to nominate two people instead because we were a group. We all went to Chicago together. Tyler Arsenault, Ken Edwards, and myself. Those two guys are hardcore features. They've won like this comedy contest called Stone versus Drunk versus Sober, where they have two comics on each team compete under different like mindsets. I've actually won for Team Sober and Team Stoned. But these guys are killers, and people should check them out more.
Most definitely. And your favorite headliner?
My favorite headliner is still going to be my comedy father, the one that got me in, and I'm going to say that that's Chase Myers. Dude's a beast, and he's killing it right now up in Seattle and like all that stuff. Well, he was killing it before COVID, but people should check him out. Bucketsofducats.com. He is a very funny guy, and his co-host for his podcast, Josh Watts, is also somebody who kind of helped me get through comedy, and I think that those dudes are really great. Do I have a chance to give some shout outs real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so here in Baton Rouge, we have a couple of we have a lot of great comics. There's some albums you guys should check out that would really help out a lot of the comics around here. Will Merrill has an album. It's on like, Apple, iTunes, all the places where you can find these things. It's called That's Work, WIRK. Really funny, great album. I was there when it was recorded. It was fucking amazing. Then there's Mike Honore. Mike Honore, his Splenda Afternoon. This guy is one of the funniest, if not the funniest person in Louisiana. And I think that the whole world should know more about Mike Honore. Then, of course, if you search for Louisiana a Louisiana comedy album, you can find 2 or 3 albums that have a bunch of us featured and recorded on there. And that would all be helping us out. And then, of course, my buddies over at No Show Comedy. These are all great places to check out, especially if you're in Louisiana and you want to see like really good comedy. Follow us on Facebook at Baton Rouge Comedy. And you'll see all of the shows that are coming soon. We're starting to have shows come back. We're making sure that everyone's safe with their seating and things like that. So I really think that this is a perfect time to come back out there and have a nice, safe environment where you can enjoy and have a laugh.
Indeed, most definitely. That's Splendid Afternoon's been coming up a lot with a lot of my guests from your area, and I'm like, all right, stop twisting my arm. I'm gonna listen to the album as soon as I get off this interview with Morgan. And so, but there's 2 more slots that I'd like for you to nominate, and that's favorite host. I think we will talk about host. If not, who's your favorite host besides yourself?
My favorite host is still Robert Rao, the guy that used to run the station Bar and Grill. He's a hilarious guy, but like I said, he has a very unique way to just roast people to keep shows going. Like I wish that I was more of a host like him.
Indeed. And your favorite showrunner / producer other than yourself?
That's Jason Leonard. Jason Leonard runs Lafayette Comedy, and he gets big names in comedy. He's got Sean Patton coming, Kyle Kinane, all it's a huge list. You just search for Lafayette Comedy, but his name is Jason P. Leonard on Facebook. You can find him, and he's the best showrunner producer in the whole state.
Indeed, most definitely. And so, Morgan, we've have some more viewers in here. You're a popular guy,
nice.
So if you'd like to jump into the chat box, more than welcome to, and all that good stuff. And make sure to follow Morgan on Instagram, and subscribe to his channel on YouTube. Donate to his PayPal that's scrolling on the bottom as well. It's also below the description box below on YouTube as well. And also donate to pinkfund.org on behalf of Morgan. That'd be pretty awesome if he as well. And all that good stuff. And Morgan, are there any final words you'd like to give out to the audience this evening?
Well, basically, I would just like to tell everybody to just take it easy, take it day by day. We're all stuck in this shit together. Go out and vote. Make sure your voice is heard. Things are going to be different from now on. But if we stick together, if we communicate with each other, and we just try to understand that, no matter what our backgrounds are and things like that, we're all on this giant rock flying through space, together. That's the biggest part. Just trying not to separate each other and just have communication. That's the biggest. If we could just start communicating with each other, we can solve a lot of issues.
Indeed. That's what I learned a lot in life, is communicate and respect each other, and then everything will be just fine. And nice cat, by the way. What's your cat's name?
His name's Little Cat. He used to be little, but he's not so much anymore. He was a rescue that I didn't want to name him when I first got him because I was trying to find somebody else for him, but no one ever picked him for a whole year. And then we tried to name him Chester, but he goes by Little Cat. So we just call him Little Cat or Little C. And that's what he's. I've had him for about 10 years. He's a good old dude.
Awesome. Seems like a cool dude. Awesome. Well, Morgan, thank you so much for being my guest on the Stand Up Speakeasy and chopping it up and with me. And I look forward to meeting you when I go on tour after COVID's over, and introducing myself in person to you and all that good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to come out to Florida and do some shows out there. That'd be fun.
Absolutely.
I got a lot of family out there.
Sweet. I'll vouch for you and see if I can get you on as many shows as I can.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Morgan. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time on the Stand Up Speakeasy. Have a great evening.